All right, guys, back with another episode of the Filmaholic. Today we're going to be just furthering our discussion of the DC films and the DCEU. And the film that we're going to really be looking at today is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And so I want to take a little step back here and go back to the year 2013. Man of Steel has came out in theaters. Hopes are out there. You know, the universe is anywhere that we can imagine it going at this point. And we get to Comic-Con. At Comic-Con, they announce that Man of Steel 2 is actually going to be Batman versus Superman. They come out, they make this big announcement on stage. Hopes are high. People get so excited. Okay, they read a little thing from The Dark Knight Returns. That's the version of Batman we're going to have here. After obviously teasing Batman in the last film with the Wayne satellite. After that, the casting for Batman begins. And if you remember back then, it seemed like the main person that it came down to two people, right? That was Ben Affleck, who ultimately got the role, which people kind of went crazy over at first. And then the other choice was Josh Brolin to play Batman, which I like to sit and think about, like, because honestly, like, at that time, I was very against Josh Brolin being Batman. I couldn't see it. Thought Ben Affleck was the better casting choice, and I still do, and I like how it ultimately worked out, because if he had became Batman, he probably would have became Thanos. But looking back, I think he would have made a really good Batman, especially for that version they were going for. So kind of a missed opportunity for them.
Especially the way he pushed his body to the limit for Deadpool 2.
Yeah. So I think it would have been really cool. But they don't end up choosing him. They choose Ben Affleck. Internet kind of explodes for a little bit, like they always do over some out there casting. But ultimately it works, right? Like, Ben Affleck looks like Batman. And he ends up in the film, in my personal opinion, giving us one of the best versions of Batman that we've ever seen on film. I'm not going to say he's my favorite, because we never really got to see him that much of him. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, they announced this Batman versus Superman. We got our cast now. I think after that, the next big casting announcement that came out was Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Do you want to talk about that? Like, what was your feelings of these two big casting choices going into the film?
All right. Let me cast him.
And also, do you think, like, what do you think on Batman versus Superman? Do you think that was the right choice to go like that direction instead of just the Man of Steel 2?
All right. All right. Let's start first with how I felt about them. I was just like, why are you picking this storyline and you haven't, like, fully established your universe, at least fully established your version of the characters? And like, it's just like, dude, this is like, what was it at the time? Like their second movie, right?
This was their second movie in the DC universe.
Yeah, and I was like, you're making this your second movie already? You haven't introduced the Flash. You haven't introduced Green Lantern. You haven't introduced Aquaman, like, or Wonder Woman or anything, which they did eventually in the movie. But I was like, okay, like, and especially with Zack Snyder, I was just like, sure, he had a vision, but I was just like, dude, I don't trust you with this, like one of the most well-known stories for DC Comics. Like, this is just like, yeah, and especially his version of Batman. It's just like okay, like, we probably would have been cool with it if he at least had like a couple movies under his belt at that time, which he didn't. And that movie just questioned his character, saying like that is not Batman, rightfully so. Especially with Man of Steel, like, we haven't gotten a sequel. Like, what's up?
So here's my thoughts on that part of it. When I first heard the announcement, I was kind of upset because I did think one, we needed a Man of Steel 2 before we got him coming into interaction with other heroes. And we also needed a solo Batman film to establish this Batman before we jump into a Batman versus Superman or a Justice League or whatever. We needed to know this Batman on his own and what made him this version, this dark, brutal version that we ended up getting. Because in Batman versus Superman, we're made to assume a lot, and we're told a little bit of backstory, but we're not be able to see it. With the assumption that we know the comics and that we can just apply it to this film. Obviously, Jason Todd being killed, we see him looking at the Robin costume. We know Joker killed him. But, that is so, something that should have been on the big screen. And, it was rumored for a while that was what Ben Affleck's proposed trilogy was, which I don't think it was. And we'll get into that a little bit later and all that. But ultimately, I was upset at first that this was the direction they were going. And I do believe that before they ever made a Justice League film, they should have made individual films for every character, including a Man of Steel 2. However, I don't think the decision to make Batman vs. Superman and the storyline they ended up going with was a bad decision. I don't think it was, because I think it made sense. The way they played the story out at first in the film, with people looking at Superman and blaming him for, being responsible for the destruction of Metropolis. Obviously we see the scene with Batman running through Metropolis, with the little girl. He looks up, sees Superman and Zod fighting. All of that was so good, I thought, in the film, that it made sense for Batman vs. Superman to actually be the second film in the DC universe, especially with the age that we have Batman at. The problem was they tried to cram too much into the film after that. That is all you needed in the film to push the narrative of them two going at odds, right? But then you also add this other stuff in the film that no one really cared about, and just it felt awkward, it felt weird. You had this whole stuff in, I think it was Africa, where, these journalists get assassinated, which turns out to be Lex Luthor that was behind it, all this different stuff, and people blowing up in courtrooms and different stuff to try to pin Superman to be more of a villain and have Batman be more angry. And you didn't need that stuff. You already set it up in the last film. You didn't need other villains in the movie other than, I'm glad they put Lex Luthor in this film, setting him up for a larger role in the future. But this movie should have been Superman's movie with Batman as the antagonist until the end, where they realize that they're on the same team. And going back to the casting, because we should go back to that real quick. I know I said I liked Ben Affleck. I thought that actually was a good casting for the age they went with. The Jesse Eisenberg thing, I wasn't a fan of. Overall, that version of Lex Luthor is definitely not a version of Lex Luthor that I would have went with in the DC universe. I think they could have made it a really relevant film and modeled him after certain real people. And you could have went with the whole political angle, all of this different stuff that you could have. You had so many possibilities that you could have taken this, and other actors that you could have brought Lex Luthor, one of the greatest comic book villains of all time, to life with. And instead, you chose Jesse Eisenberg, who, he's not a terrible actor, but he's kind of I think, one note. He did a really good job with The Social Network, but then he plays that in almost everything else. And that's what he brings to Lex Luthor. And to be fair, that's what they wanted with this version of Lex Luthor. Yeah. They were trying to make him like a Mark Zuckerberg type Lex Luthor, which I think was a mistake, but that's what they were going with. And overall in the film, I don't think Jesse Eisenberg was bad. I actually kind of liked Lex Luthor for most of the film and what they were going with. I just think they shut the bed with the ending with him. But what did you think of him?
The redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming. Better watch out with those peaches. I don't know. I just didn't like it, man. I was just watching the entire movie. I was just many possibilities. the options or the people they could have got for like a tryout, I guess you could say. I just didn't felt it like I'm with you. Like I can see why they got him like from the Social Network. That's pretty much it. But I was just like, nah, like this is I'm not feeling it. Like I'm just not feeling it.
And then you also go into the other stuff that we've heard behind the scenes that originally, and I think the script is out there somewhere, or was, that the Riddler was supposed to be in this film too.
Yeah, and that's what he originally.
Yeah, like Jesse Eisenberg was originally cast, or Zack Snyder wanted him to play the Riddler, and then when they ended up getting rid of that character from the film, he ended up playing Lex Luthor or whatever. I think he would have made a much better Riddler. I think that would have fit better with him than Lex Luthor, especially in terms of the overall DCEU. But and it's really just like that. That makes you look at like the creatives in charge, just like how could you, like, those two characters are nothing alike, the Riddler and Lex Luthor. Like, so how could you get like confused of like that casting choices and stuff?
They were probably just playing darts. I was like, all right, wherever it lands.
That's what he's gonna play in the film. I did really like his score though. That's something I want to point out. The scores in Batman v Superman are really good. Like, because you got the Lex Luthor score, which I think is really great, but you also got the Wonder Woman score because that was created in this film. Both I think are like you can just like hear them in your head when you think about it.
Especially the one like what is the dun dun dun? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, man. Dang, man, you could give me my depression just talking about this movie.
Overall, though, I gotta say I like Batman v Superman.
Well, you got to watch the director's cut to get more.
Well, that's what I'm talking about too. That's what I have. My copy that I have is the director's cut.
Yeah, because like when you watch the director's cut, you kind of go like, "Oh, that makes sense."
But despite me liking the film, I definitely think it has a lot of issues, and there should have been. I would have changed a lot of stuff with the film. Like I said, we start with the scene with Bruce Wayne sees the destruction of Metropolis. Good. We move it into the film more, and then that's when we start doing this stuff, these subplots, right? And it's introduced this new storyline with the Africa stuff, which ends up linking back to Lex Luthor. None of that was needed in the film. I don't know why it was there. It's like you had your sequel, but you didn't feel like it was justified enough to have Batman fight him. I don't know what they were trying to, like, why you were trying to do that in this film. So we move past that. We see more. Batman v Superman is very Batman heavy. It's really more ultimately a Batman film, I think, than a Superman film, which I don't mind because I love Batman and I loved seeing Ben Affleck as Batman in this film, how brutal he was and the darkness he was. But being the second film after Man of Steel, it should have been more of a Superman-centric film. Henry Cavill definitely got the short end of the stick here. And his performance was not good in the film. And I don't blame that on him necessarily. I don't know. There's one scene there's lots of scenes that he's not good in the film, but there's one scene in particular where I think about it a lot especially when I'm thinking about the DC universe. Is like he's talking to Lois Lane. He's like, no one can say good in this world, and he just makes like this cringe face and like floats away. And I'm like, how could you film that scene and leave it in there? How could you think that was good?
Jackson, I was just like, got it. We got our scene. We got it. We got it. All right, time to do bench press. But
I liked Alfred in this too. This is a new, refreshing version of Alfred that we hadn't seen before with Jeremy Irons playing him. I thought that was good. I liked the Batmobile in the film. Overall, the tone of the film I thought was good. Trying to think of other stuff they have in there before we get to the end. I'm trying to think of like the middle of the film and that different stuff. The first time that Batman and Superman like actually like see each other in costume and he wrecks the car, that was a great scene. I liked that. Any thoughts coming from you?
I like the car. Well, I'm just gonna say the positives here. I did like the car. I like the suit. I actually like the Batman suit.
I did too. I thought it was a nice new version we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, it was just like like that. Um, and what's the other thing I like? Shit, Wonder Woman obviously coming into this, especially with
Which
her cinema.
once again with Wonder Woman, this is a situation where I think she should have had her own film. We should have seen Wonder Woman before Batman v Superman for a couple of different reasons. One, just because I think her character deserved to be in her own film before she was introduced in this team up film, where she wasn't even in the title. Two, from a financial standpoint, and as a studio, if they had put if they had put Wonder Woman out before this film, do you know how much more successful Batman v Superman would have been? And you could argue, well, Justice League came out after Wonder Woman, and it wasn't financially successful. Justice League sucked, and we'll get to that in a bit. Batman v Superman has problems, but overall, I think it's a good movie. A lot of people, when you talk about their complaints, and I know you can talk about yours here in a second, they talk about it being dark and depressing and like long, and like that was the story they were telling. I don't know.
All right. Well, they were my positives because they ain't much of them. All right. First, let's go with when what is it like when the Capitol got blown up
Yes.
and Superman is still there all sad. I was like, dude, you can still save some people. Yeah, they may probably have some like I don't know 12-degree burns if that is possible. Save them, like, and you just blow away. Like you're Superman. Like fly up or at least scan around and see like look if anyone is like alive. And you just go flown up just because like you just go like, well shit, the world's against me. Like, dude, you're Superman. Like if someone is against you or not, you're gonna save them no matter what. No matter what their point of view is. Uh what else? Here's a positive. Ben Affleck's workout montage. I was just looking at goals. Anyways. Uh Lou like Amy Adams, not Amy Adams as like actress or the character or anything, but like she wasn't given anything like to do, man.
No, she really wasn't. Once
Like
again, and like every film that she's been in the DC universe, she's just kind of there, and it's like really like just bland and boring. And she could do so much more with the character that I'm like confused.
Yeah,
There's a scene there's a scene in this movie where also let's touch on that real quick, okay? So you have the Lois and Clark relationship, which is one of the biggest comic book relationships, especially in the DC. But
or not the biggest.
You think it is the biggest?
Yeah, I think it's like the most well known.
I mean, well,
before the cinematic, before Marvel and all that.
I don't know. The comics, I think you have Lois and Clark, and you have Peter and Mary Jane. I think those are the two biggest like comic book relationships. But I don't feel anything with these characters, and I don't care. Like when I watch them, there's nothing like making me believe their relationship. We saw their beginning of them even like getting to know each other in Man of Steel, and this film, which isn't that much longer after, I guess I can't remember what the time frame was here, was like at least less than a year or a year, and they're already living together. But I don't feel anything emotionally. I don't buy them as a couple. There's no like chemistry between them. I just don't care. And then there's like that scene with them taking a bath together. It's like you wasted Amy Adams on this scene. And then of course I don't want to get to the third act. I want to like put everything else out there before we get to the third act. But there's stuff in the third act that happens too that's like, wow, I'm sitting here and I don't feel anything. Kind of like the Rise of Skywalker. This is a better movie than Rise of Skywalker, though.
I just felt numb.
Yeah.
Down there. It's like it's like finally asking out that girl from prom, like, and she says yes, and then you just go on that date, and he's like, you feel nothing the whole entire night. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. Like when I mean the whole entire, like, you feel no connection. Like
I
you
feel no
talk,
connection
like
with
you,
the characters.
but you, yeah, like you feel nothing towards that. But dude, yeah, with Amy Adams, that was like, like she was just a waste, and I sense that she really wants to do this, but she's not given a lot to work with.
Well, neither was Henry Cavill in this film.
No, same
Right.
thing. I always tell you this. Yeah, his acting can use some improving, but it's just like you have to hire someone that can bring the best out of him. It's just like, all right, let's see how much food you have in the tank, and let's use every bit of it. Let's run you down to we got to refuel you again for the next one, like to that point. Was it Deanne Lane?
Diane Lane.
Yeah, like she wasn't like I'm not like she wasn't given a lot to work either. Like, and I can understand why, but it was just like with that small screen time, she could still do a lot. Uh, what else? Like, what's that villain again with the flamethrower? Like he was in the Winter Soldier and he was in Endgame. The one with the
Uh,
I can't even pronounce it. I
his
don't know.
he was supposed to be I think KGB
Yeah,
KGB
yeah.
in this film.
I was just always like, dude, I was just like, what is your purpose? Are you just there to be like just a henchman? I mean, yeah, he was a henchman, but it was just like the whole entire time I was like, what the hell are you supposed to be?
Yeah.
It's just I mean, Batman just got rid of him like that quick. He was like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Batman was just like, son of a bitch. Threw the flamethrower. Blew up.
Yeah, okay, I remember the scene you're talking about now.
Yeah.
In the warehouse type thing.
And then trying to think what else, because it's been a while since I've seen the movie.
There was a lot of
Clark Kent. Clark Kent, real quick. Clark Kent, just real quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. In the comics when he wears the whole entire, he saw like he's a really clumsy guy. I was just like, what the fuck? Like y'all making Clark this really serious character, which I guess it went with the tone of what they were doing, but I was just like his character is supposed to be all basically geeky and nerdy, basically me.
Right, because you have you're trying to make it more grounded, right? And you're trying
Yeah.
to make it more in this real world. But then you have the obstacle with Superman is how do people not know that's Clark Kent, right? Because when he's Clark Kent, he just wears glasses, which he never did his whole life until he got a job at this with his newspaper. But he looks the same as Superman. How do people know in this age that that's not Clark Kent? Especially the people that he works with at a newspaper. Now,
exactly. And
so
he's wearing the man looks like he shops at Brooks Brothers, wearing nice, well-fitted clothes. You can tell the man works out. And no one can say oh, geez, this Clark guy looks kind of like that red caping looking guy. Come on, I'm not saying he had to wear at least some baggy clothes.
You would think they would try to make him more like he was in the comics, like you said, clumsy and nerdy and all that, to try to separate himself from what Superman would be. Right. Another thing I just thought of that I hated in this film, and I know they've done it in other stories too, and they might do it sometimes in the comics. I don't really know, but they made Gotham and Metropolis across the river from each other.
A stone throw away.
Hated this. It's so stupid. Makes no sense in terms of in that world. First of all, I always thought the Metropolis was supposed to be in Kansas. Was the big city in this fictional version of Kansas, even if it's not in Kansas and it's a different state, and he's for some reason that's where he wants to go after he leaves Smallville. Because I try to base a lot of my Superman knowledge comes from
the geography. I guess you try to play in real life, geography and everything.
Yeah. So because he's not the only character from Smallville that goes to Metropolis. There's other characters too, like at least from the show and like whatever. But anyways, so he goes to Metropolis, and you're telling me that's right across the river from Gotham, which I've always considered either like Chicago or like New York's, whatever. Like you could, I don't know, whatever. They shouldn't be. What?
You ever seen those Turkish Airlines commercials they did?
No, I heard about them. I never watched them.
They spent all that time doing this Turkish commercial airlines on YouTube, and the cities were right there next to each other. Like, Jesus, they should have done like an Uber or Lyft commercials.
Yeah, it was really stupid.
But hey, Turkish Airlines got some attention though. Well, from the American audience.
And it makes no sense, okay? So, like, one, if they're right next to each other, why does Batman just... There's several questions here. So, Batman only protects Gotham, only fights people in Gotham. He never goes to Metropolis and fights if they're right next to each other. And then also, so many questions. Like, the villains from Gotham, why would they just not go to Metropolis too? Why would they all stay in Gotham? But whatever. Like, the biggest thing here is in the film, Clark doesn't know who the Batman is at first, right? Like he finds out about the Batman later by like looking at these newspapers. You're telling me he grew up in this area or whatever. He's been in Metropolis now at the very least for a year, even if Metropolis isn't near Smallville, which is weird to me if that's not the case. But even if they're not next to each other, he's still been in the city for a year, which is right next to another city where there's a dude dressed up as a bat fighting villains. And you're telling me he doesn't know who the Batman is?
At least he was like kind of curious, at least to find out.
Like, and also, at this point, then there's no need for Batman anymore. Like after this, like there's no need for Batman. If these two cities are right next to each other, Superman could just fucking fly up in the sky and look at both cities and be like, okay, what do I need to do today? Like, you don't need the Batman at all anymore, if that's the case.
Batman can go take his trip to Fiji or something now.
Aside from him, he's obviously a better detective. I guess. Well, I don't know, because Clark's the reporter, so I don't know. That was just a stupid storytelling mistake.
Yeah, but this is the guy that went to take his body to like peak human condition, including his mind and just everything.
Do you have any more thoughts before we get to like the third act?
Okay. How in the hell did Lex Luthor found the time to make some logos for the metahumans?
Yeah,
like, was he taking a dump, or was he like in a like halftime in a meeting? He was just like, "Let me make some logos for these guys." Dude, you could have just made a folder. This dude took the time to make logos and everything on them. He even made names for them.
Ultimately, that whole stuff was kind of stupid, other than the one with Wonder Woman, because we haven't seen them in their own movies. Why are they the only ones that he was able to find? Because I'm sure there's other metahumans out there at that point, that just because they're not going to be in Justice League, why would he not have found them? Just those scenes were bad in general. Like, the only one that I think I remember liking was the Flash one. I thought it wasn't that bad.
I mean, that's the one that you can like, okay, I can see that. But with Gotham, just kind of like same thing with Wonder Woman. Well, I don't know, with the Wonder Woman sightings, I can kind of see why, because they had the photo and everything, and probably like he could look up like stories from like those people that survived the back and forth war.
Right.
So I can see that, but like, and then Cyborg, I guess probably his connection with, but like, oh yeah, his father's a scientist.
That Cyborg one was bad though. They really dropped the ball with Cyborg in these movies. Like the visual effects were terrible.
They dropped the ball and everything. They were wide open for the touchdown, Super Bowl game winning, right in their hands. Boing.
And like I said, with there other being other metahumans out there, wouldn't he have had a thing of a Green Lantern? Even if like Green Lantern's not on Earth, you would think that like Green Lantern would be part of that metahumans thing, because we know in future films they mention the lanterns being a thing that exists. So Hal Jordan's probably out there somewhere in the world at this point. I don't know. It was just stupid.
Like, I know, like, but it's just like, but obviously they have plot armor here. But like, at least look up a guy like Oliver Quinn.
And they also they set a lot up. I think we should mention too. They set a lot up in this film, and this is Zack Snyder's plan, right? Because he had a plan in his head, I guess, when it's all said and done, for a trilogy that would start with Man of Steel, continue with Batman versus Superman, and go into Justice League, and that would be like this. Well, he actually planned 3 Justice League movies, but he had this arc that he was planning and everything. This was, I guess, those 3 movies would have been a Superman arc at least. But so they start teasing like a lot of Darkseid stuff in this movie. You know, Darkseid kind of messes with Lex Luthor's head. You got that in the film. There's this really good scene that I liked in the film where Bruce Wayne goes and visits his parents in the mausoleum, right? And it's like a nightmare, and the Darkseid creatures come out and like attack him. I thought that was a really good scene, very like creepy, and something I hadn't seen in a comic book film before.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. All right, you keep going, Lupo. I'll keep thinking.
Okay. Well, let's just go on into the third act then, because there's not really. I can't think of anything else, mentioning other than that stuff so far. Oh no, actually, let's go back. I did think a couple other things. We also got the dude in the wheelchair, right?
Oh,
yeah. Like lost his legs because of the Zod fight. I thought they were gonna set him up to be like Metallo or somebody, like another villain, and that's the thing. And it goes back to the third act. You had this guy set up. You gave us some context. You gave us some backstory of why he would not like Superman, why he would be could be a villain. And you could have made him Metallo. You could have made him whoever. And instead, you have him be the one that brings the bomb into the courtroom. And then we get into the third act here, you bring in Doomsday in the third act. What a fucking mistake to bring Doomsday into this film. Your second film in your DC universe, your second film, the second time we've seen Superman on screen, and you bring in Doomsday. Couple things.
They grabbed that suitcase. They were like, "We're just taking some clothes, right?" Nah, we're taking everything. All right. That's how it was. They were just trying to fit in as much as they can in that fucking suitcase. But go on.
Like, not only is it your second film, and it's so soon to have him fight Doomsday, but there's no stakes here because, for one, obviously Superman dies in the film, right? At the end. So he dies, he sacrifices himself, he kills Doomsday, and he dies along the way. Which I honestly was sort of a little surprised that they did that. I thought that they were just going to defeat Doomsday and he wasn't going to die. So they kill him. But even though that was a little bit of surprise, you know he's not dead. Because, for one, it's the second film, and 2, you have Justice League coming out in like a year or whatever. I think it ended up, it was a year later. You had Justice League coming out. So, and even at the end of this film, you have the dirt from his grave rising up. Just, that was bad. Doomsday himself, the way they ended up creating Doomsday, that was fine. Didn't really care, but the way he looked was bad. He kind of looked like a fucked up Ninja Turtle. And then you couldn't see anything that was happening during most of this fight. It was just a bunch of lights, and it was a bunch of lights, but for something that had so many different lights, you still couldn't see what was happening. It was still really dark. They fight. Wonder Woman shows up, we were introduced to earlier in the film with Bruce Wayne, and we're getting interested with her. She shows up. They all fight. Ultimately, Superman has to fight and kill Doomsday, and then he sacrifices himself. Going back a little bit before that, we have the big fight scene with Batman Superman, with Batman's armored suit. He's got his Iron Man suit on. Comes out there and fights Superman. I liked all that stuff. I thought it was good. Got the eyes. I thought that stuff was good. I liked that fight.
Kryptonite.
There's some scene, and I can't really remember the context of all of it, but I remember there being a pit of water, and like Lois they throw something down the pit of water to like hide it, and then she ends up. Here. Okay, so they throw it down the water, right? And then she has to go back down there and get it again, like 5 minutes later. Why'd you even throw it down there in the first place?
Yeah, seriously, we're gonna get a drink of water.
So just like that whole third act was a messy, just piece of garbage. Like, you had this film that I actually liked until this point, and it should have been Batman versus Superman, and it should have ended with them teaming up, and you could have had them fight Metallo or whoever, smaller level villain, probably something to do with Kryptonite. But instead, you create Doomsday, and you just kind of like just ruin that character already. Lex Luthor goes to prison at the end of this movie. Let's not forget that too. So any kind of political future that you could have planned for this character, like you had in the comics, that's gone now. And he's just in prison. I did like the scene with Batman and him in jail, but once again, I was really disappointed that they went ahead and had him get arrested in this film. And then you kind of just further tease the dark side stuff with that, and then they bury Superman, which also isn't that a convenience that Superman and Clark, who look just alike, died on the same day too.
I don't know. He probably took a paid vacation.
Well, no, they buried him on around the farm or whatever. And I know we're not talking about Justice League yet, but this is something I thought about when I watched Batman vs. Superman, is when they bring him back to life, when they bring Superman back, how are they going to explain bringing Clark back? Because he had a funeral.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess we gotta find out till the Justice League comes out. I don't know. We got years for it, though,
And then we also find out in the ending part there that he was going to propose to Lois or whatever, and like she gets the ring. Once again, felt no emotion from it. Didn't care because there's those two characters hadn't been built up enough. And then we get the foreshadowing of the Justice League with Batman and Wonder Woman, and him saying he knows something dark is pretty much on the horizon. Yeah, I don't know. Like, overall, I got to say that I still don't hate the movie. It had a lot of ambition behind it. It was definitely a vision, and I thought it was good. It's just, to me, ultimately, it's that third act where things just like go off the wall. Like, it was like you made this film and then got to the third act and you were like, yeah, we're not going to make any more, so you just do everything in this film, which isn't what actually happened. So I don't know I don't know how you actually planned this, but we also don't know what Zack Snyder had originally planned for Justice League. We're going to talk about that later. But do you have any more thoughts about this film?
Oh man, I'm already getting depressed talking about this film. I'm not even kidding. So I was like in my head, like, oh, what could have been?
All right,
I'm
well,
I'm gonna need some of those peaches that senator was drinking or whatever.
also, yeah, so Holly Hunter is in this film as that senator, wasted. She's a good actress.
Oh, she literally got wasted from them peaches. You damn right she did.
All right, guys, that's our episode here talking about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. The next film that we'll be talking about in our DC run through is going to be Suicide Squad. I know everyone's excited for that.
Oh.
We're going to have a lot of fun with that one. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.